I recently got to play Odyssey again at a press event in Paris and learned way more about the game's story and just the overall introduction since we started from the beginning. So in this video we will take a look at some awesome new gameplay, I will share some interesting new story details, we got some modern day stuff and way more. I will not include any big spoilers, but expect to see some scenes from early parts of the game. So if you enjoyed that, then a like would be super appreciated, and let's go. Let's start with one thing that I was happy to see, and that are high quality cutscenes we come to expect from the series. So the game starts out with a cool scene with Leonidas himself as you fight some Persian soldiers, but also as you go through the pretty big tutorial island called Kefalonia, you will have multiple really well done flashbacks where you learn more about the past of Alexios or Kassandra. Because that is what had me worried. You have two characters, so they might both lack a personality or a reason for you to care about them. But for me that was actually not the case at all during the time that I played. They both might share the same personal traits, but it does make them likable, and again the story that they were thrown away by their father because they did something terrible sets a very interesting tone. As a child you end up on Kefalonia where Marcos finds you and takes care of you. He is a businessman who mostly let other people fix his problems, and you are one of those persons. So the first quest will be about getting his money back, taking care of problems from citizens that Marcos should fix, something Alexios or Kassandra has been doing for years. This is until a bigger mission comes on your path and requires you to leave the tutorial island and go explore Greece. I don't want to go into too much specifics, but seeing these flashbacks as you go through these quests on the tutorial island make the story interesting and in the end also personal as you go through the game. And you can choose how to take that personality from Alexios or Kassandra that they start the game with and apply that to the world. You can be a dick against Marcos, who gives you stupid things to do, or you can have mercy for the shopkeeper that owns you money but does give you a good reason why he can't give it to you, or you can destroy his store until you get what is yours. Gameplay choices also impact the quest, because for one quest you are recommended to go in stealthy, but if you don't do that and enemies see you, they will know that the quest giver sent you, so they will then have a huge group of enemies near the quest giver and you have to take them out before you can complete the quest. So instead of pushing you into one direction, the game punishes you for doing something else by throwing more enemies at you. Enemies you would otherwise not have to fight if you stole the thing without being seen. That is just a small thing, but at the end of the 6-hour demo there was also a huge choice that will likely impact the whole main story and even the ending. After making that decision, I was totally curious to see what was next and what other choices would come on my path. Odyssey has three main stories inside Ancient Greece. We got the family story I just told you about, we got the Cult of Cosmos story, so that is a cult you will be chasing for whatever reason. I did not hear about that in the part that I played, and there's also a story that focuses on the first civilization artifacts. One of the later missions of that first Civ story was, for example, the fight against Medusa we saw at Gamescom. Good to note is that the family story will have the most branching narrative, like in terms of choices that have an impact. So the most changes depending on what you do, so the most endings as well. While you will still have a choice that has an impact in the Cult of Cosmos story or the first Civ story, it will not be as huge as in the family story. During my interview with the senior producer, I learned that the first Civ story will intervene with the family story, although details are scarce at this point. Also, the first Civ story should become more intricate towards the end of the game. And I can see why, because then you fight Medusa and likely other max level bosses as well, but you already get access to this first Civ main storyline earlier. Again, not during the first 6 hours that I played, but maybe when you want to upgrade your Spear of Leonidas, that is of course a first Civ artifact. We recently learned that you do that at spots called shrines in the game, and this is needed to further enhance your abilities. So while I could upgrade some abilities after I unlocked them, some upgrades required an upgraded spear that I did not have in this demo. During the start of the game you also get a taste of the present day story that I sadly could not record, but just like the other cutscenes in the game, the present day section looked really good. We saw Layla in a sort of small warehouse with a ton of crap around her, in a room with Victoria Bebo, who you can know from Assassin's Creed novels. Layla just found a spear, and in the cutscene she's going into the Animus, and Victoria mentions that she made a few changes since the last time that Layla went inside. So they are not entirely sure if the book and the Spear of Leonidas she found like under it, she mentions, are legit. it. But Layla got a feeling that it's real and she does not want Abstergo to find it first. Then inside the Animus you can choose between Kassandra and Alexios, and this because the manuscript is in rough conditions. Victoria says that the DNA found on the spear has identified 2 different individuals. Then Victoria says that the choice is yours to pick which strand of DNA to pursue. And then you select one of the 2 characters that you can of course not switch mid-game, so you are stuck with Alexios or Kassandra. Then Layla says that she does not want Abstergo to win, and that if she finds the artifact in ancient Greece, the assassins can rise again. And that was the only present day part during my 6-hour demo. Going back to Greece, like I said, we got 3 main stories while we explore the open world, and you can really choose to follow them or not. The developers told me that the choice is yours and that you can likely become a level 50, so the max level, without finishing the family story or other mainline stories. Because there is a ton of stuff going on in the world and it all opens up pretty fast. Like in my first 6 hours I already had my first conquest battle, recruited an enemy for on my ship and could then just recruit anyone in the world. I done some naval combat and encountered some mercenaries that from the moment you leave the tutorial island will be present in the world all the time. The only mercenary you will see in Kefalonia is the guy from level 5 that spawns pretty early on in the game and will be a pain until you reach level 4. And that can take a while for sure, like the leveling is way slower than in Origins. Showing you once again that Odyssey will be a way bigger game in terms of content and in terms of time it takes to reach the final level. So yeah, completing the locations in the world will be very crucial in order to get some XP, and that is what was awesome about the first 6 hours of Odyssey, and I think Odyssey in general. You got the things from Origins, like the barracks with the chest and the enemies you have to kill in order to complete it. I found some animal lairs where you have to kill a stronger animal in order to get the location. And on top of that, you got these mercenaries that drop cool loot, the conquest system with the leaders you gotta take out and the big battles you can take part in, and of course the side missions that you can also do. And a lot of it is optional, so already in the first hours of the game there's a lot of freedom in the activities that you can do. You can also access all the weapon categories from the start, so immediately pick the one that you want. I was like surprised how often I went to the blacksmith to check for good gear, because that was really needed. You really can use all the strength you can get at the early levels of the game, since the enemies are strong and you do not deal a lot of damage, making it even for me, so someone who put like 250 hours in Origins, still a challenge. And that was cool too, like even if you are experienced, you can still make it as hard as you want, thanks to the mercenary system that will keep throwing enemies at you that you can choose to kill for a better mercenary rank or for better gear, but you can also choose to ignore by paying off your bounty. Because this was of course a build that was made closer to release, there were very little like performance issues whatsoever. Only the load times were like really long, but they still have to optimize that according to the developers, so hopefully that will be better at launch. I now played the game on the PS4 Pro. Also the character animations, they are improved over the E3 demo, but there are still moments where the animations just don't feel right, like even for Kassandra and Alexios, but it did not really like impact my overall experience that much, but you can't of course help but notice for sure. You can say that I was really engaged during these 6 hours, mostly thanks to the choices as well that give you way more reason to listen to the characters and give context to the quest. And your choices do not only impact the story, but also the reward you get, like do I want to get the money that this quest giver will give, or maybe keep the item that I had to find for this quest giver. At the start of the game, money was pretty important. Again, I went to the blacksmith pretty often and that wasn't cheap, but I can see why you would maybe hold on to the item instead later on in the game and lie that you did not find it. Especially when you find like exclusive legendary items on a higher level. I would totally get that awesome sword instead of some extra money. I can't wait to dive back into Odyssey, like finally make my own character, build my own like loadout. It releases of course on October 5th or October 2nd if you got like the gold edition or other special edition. This is just the start of my coverage from this demo. I will have way more awesome videos coming to the channel, so keep an eye out for that as we near the release. We also should hear more about the post-launch as well before launch, so that is good stuff. I already saw some things in the demo that I can't really say a lot about, but it was still like pretty cool stuff. I'll keep you up to date when we know more of course, so subscribe to miss nothing regarding Assassin's Creed Odyssey. There was also a new trailer released. I got a breakdown on the channel that you can watch by clicking on the screen, and I will of course speak to you next time. Drop a like to support the channel, and goodbye.